Orléans is a city in north-central France, about 111 kilometers southwest of Paris. It is the capital of the Loire department and of the Centre-Val de Loire region. Orléans is located on the Loire River, where the river curves south towards the Massif Central.New Orleans, in Louisiana, United States, is named after the city. Geography. Orléans is located in the northern bend of the Loire, which crosses from east to west. Orléans belongs to the Vallée de la Loire sector between Salé-sur-Loire and Chalon-sur-Loire, which was in 2000 inscribed by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. The capital of Orléans, 120 kilometers south-southwest of Paris. It is bordered to the north by the Biche region and the Forêt d'Orléans, and the Orléans-les-Sources neighborhood and the Salon region to the south. 5 bridges in the city cross the river: Pont de l'Europe, Pont du Maréchal Joffre, Pont George V, carrying the commune tramway, Pont René Thinat, Pont de Vierzon. To the north of the Loire is to be found a small hill at the Pont Georges V, 110 meters at the Place du Martois, which gently rises to 125 meters at Le Croix-Fleury, at the limits of Fleury-les-Aubrais. Conversely, the south has a gentle depression to about 95 meters above sea level between the Loire and the Loiret, designated a zone inondable. At the end of the 1960s, the Orléans-les-Sources quarter was created, 12 kilometers to the south of the original commune and separated from it by the Val d'Orléans and the Loire River. This quarter's altitude varies from about 100 to 110 meters. The Loire navigation in Orléans. The Loire is separated by a submerged dike known as the Douai into the Grande Loire to the north, no longer navigable, and the Petite Loire to the south. This dike is just one part of a vast system of construction that previously allowed the Loire to remain navigable to this point. The Loire was formerly an important navigation and trading route. With the increase in size of ocean-going ships, large ships can now navigate the estuary only up to about Nantes. Boats on the river were traditionally flat-bottomed boats with large but foldable masts so the sails could gather wind from above the river banks, but the masts could be lowered in order to allow the boats to pass under bridges. These vessels are known as gabarets, vitraux, and so on, and may be viewed by tourists near Pont Royal. The river's irregular flow strongly limits traffic on it, in particular at its ascent, though this can be overcome by boats being given auto. An inexplosible type paddle steamer owned by the Mairie was put in place in August 2007, facing Place de la Loire and containing a bar. Every 2 years, the Festival de Loire recalls the role played by the river in the commune's history. On the river's north bank, near the town centre, is the Canal d'Orléans, which connects to the Canal du Loing and the Canal de Bras at Bugey near Montargis. The canal is no longer used along its whole length. Its route within Orléans runs parallel to the river, separated from it by a wall a muret with a promenade along the top. Its last pound was transformed into an outdoor swimming pool in the 1960s, then filled in. It was reopened in 2007 for the Fêtes de Loire. There are plans to revive use of the canal for recreation and install a pleasure boat port there. Climate. Orléans experiences an oceanic climate, similar to much of central France. History. Prehistory and Roman. See also Cenabum, Aureliana Civitas. Cenabum was a Gallic stronghold, one of the principal towns of the tribe of the Carnutes, where the Druids held their annual assembly. It was conquered and destroyed by Julius Caesar in 52 BC, then rebuilt under the Roman Empire. The Emperor Aurelian rebuilt the city, renaming it Aurelianum, or Aureliana Civitas, city of Aurelian, which evolved into Orléans. In 442 FL, Aetius, the Roman commander in Gaul, requests Gaul, head of the Iranian tribe of Alans in the region, to come to Orleans and hold under control rebellious natives and the present Visigoths. Accompanying the Vandals, the Alans crossed the Loire in 408. One of the groups, under Gaul, joined the Roman forces of Flavius Aetius to fight Attila when he invaded Gaul in 451, taking part in the Battle of Chalons under the king Sanguiban. Gaul establishes his capital in Orleans. His successors took later in possession the estates in the region between Orleans and Paris. Installed in Orleans and along the Loire, they were unruly and resented by the local inhabitants. Many inhabitants around the present city have names bearing witness to the Alan presence, Alanes. Also many places in that region bear now names of Alanian origin. Early Middle Ages. In the Merovingian era, the city was capital of the Kingdom of Orleans following Clovis I's division of the kingdom. Then under the Capetians it became the capital of a county then duchy held in appanage by the House of Valois-Orléans. The Valois-Orléans family later acceded to the throne of France via Louis XII, then Francis I. In 1108, one of the few consecrations of a French monarch to occur outside of Reims occurred at Orléans, when Louis VI of France was consecrated in Orléans Cathedral by Dame Berthe, Archbishop of Sens. High Middle Ages. The city was always a strategic point on the Loire, for it was sited at the river's most northerly point, and thus its closest point to Paris. There were few bridges over the dangerous river Loire, but Orléans had one of them, and so became, with Rouen and Paris, one of medieval France's three richest cities. On the south bank, the Châtelet des Tourelles protected access to the bridge. This was the site of the battle on the 8th of May 1429, which allowed Joan of Arc to enter and lift the siege of the Plantagenets during the 100 Years' War, with the help of the royal generals Dunois and Florent d'Illiers. The city's inhabitants have continued to remain faithful and grateful to her to this day, calling her La Pucelle d'Orléans, offering her a middle-class house in the city, and contributing to her ransom when she was taken prisoner. 1453 to 1699. Once the 100 Years' War was over, the city recovered its former prosperity. The bridge brought in tolls and taxes, as did the merchants passing through the city. King Louis XI also greatly contributed to its prosperity, revitalizing agriculture in the surrounding area and relaunching saffron farming at Pithiviers. Later, during the Renaissance, the city benefited from its becoming fashionable for rich chatelains to travel along the Loire Valley. The University of Orléans also contributed to the city's prestige. Specializing in law, it was highly regarded throughout Europe. John Calvin was received and accommodated there, and in return Henry VIII of England offered to fund a scholarship at the university. Many other Protestants were sheltered by the city. Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, better known by his pseudonym Molière, also studied law at the university, but was expelled for attending a carnival contrary to university rules. For the 13th of December 1560 to the 31st of January 1561, the French States General, after the death of Francis II of France, the eldest son of Catherine de Médicis and Henry II. He died in the Hotel Grosslot in Orléans, with his Queen Mary at his side. The cathedral was rebuilt several times. The present structure had its first stone laid by Henry IV, and work on it took a century. It thus is a mix of late Renaissance and early Louis XIV styles, and one of the last cathedrals to be built in France. When France colonized America, the territory it conquered was immense, including the whole Mississippi River, from its mouth to its source at the borders of Canada. Its capital was named La Nouvelle Orléans. Orleans in honor of Louis XV's regent, the Duke of Orleans, and was settled with French inhabitants against the threat from British troops to the northeast. The Dukes of Orleans hardly ever visited the city since, as brothers or cousins of the king, they took such a major role in court life that they could hardly ever leave. The Duchy of Orleans was the largest of the French duchies, starting at Arpajon, continuing to Chartres, Vendôme, Blois, Vierzon, and Montargis. The Duke's son bore the title Duke of Chartres. Inheritances from great families and marriage alliances allowed them to accumulate huge wealth, and one of them, Philippe Égalité, is sometimes said to have been the richest man in the world at the time. His son, Louis Philippe, inherited the Penthièvre and Condé family fortunes. 1852 saw the creation of the Compagnies Ferroviaires Paris-Orléans and its famous Gare d'Orsay in Paris. In the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, the city again became strategically important thanks to its geographical position, and was occupied by the Prussians on the 13th of October that year. The Armée Écoutée de la Loire was formed under the orders of General d'Aurelle de Paladins and based itself not far from Orléans at Bichat, 1900 to present. During the Second World War, the German army made the Orléans-Fleury-les-Aubrais railway station one of the central logistical rail hubs. The Pont Georges-V was renamed Pont des Tourelles. A transit camp for deportees was built at Bonne-la-Rolande. During the liberation, the American Air Force heavily bombed the city and the train station, causing much damage. The city was one of the first to be rebuilt after the war. The reconstruction plan and city improvement initiated by Jean Kérisel and Jean Royer was adopted as early as 1943, and work began as early as the start of 1945. This reconstruction in part identically reproduced what had been lost, such as Royal and its arcades, but also used innovative prefabrication techniques, such as Lot 4 under the direction of the architect Paul Abraham. The big city of former times is today an average-sized city of 250,000 inhabitants. It is still using its strategically central position less than an hour from the French capital to attract businesses interested in reducing transport costs. Heraldry. According to Victor Adolphe Maltebrun in La France Illustrée 1882, Orléans's arms are gules, 3 kilos in coeurs de lis argent, and on a chief azure 3 fleurs de lis or. Charlie had Maison, in the Dictionnaire Heraldique of 1861, states that it is or with 3 hearts in gules, without the chief of France. Sometimes, in faulty designs, we find it described gules, 3 fleurs de lis argent, and on a chief azure 3 fleurs de lis or. It is to be noted that the design shown left shows 3 coeurs de lis, seen from above. This coeurs de lis is therefore not a true lily, which would have 6 sepals, but a hypothetical aerial view of a symbolic lily. It has probably also been stylized more and more in heraldry, as in the heart in a pack of cards. Certain authors solve the problem by calling this symbol a tierce feuille, defined as a stemless clover leaf, with 1 leaf at the top and 2 below, thus making this coat of arms gules, with 3 reversed tierce feuilles in argent, etc. Motto: Hoc vernant lilia cord, meaning, it is by this heart that lilies flourish, or this heart makes lilies flourish, referring to the fleur de lis, symbol of the French royal family. Transport. Public transport manages buses and tram lines in Orléans. 2 SNCF stations, Fleury-les-Aubrais and Orléans Centre roads and highway. Orléans is an autoroute intersection. The A10 links to the commune outskirts, and A71 begins here, heading for the Mediterranean via Clermont-Ferrand. A10 highway from Paris to Bordeaux. A71 highway from Orléans to Bourges. A19 highway from Sens to Artney. National Road 20 from Paris to Spain. Railway Orléans is served by two main railway stations, the Centre-Val de Loire and the Gare des Aubrais Orléans, in the northern suburbs. Most long-distance trains call only at the Les Aubrais Orléans station, which offers connections to Paris, Lille, Tours, Brive, La Gaillarde, Nevis, and several regional destinations. People. Orléans is the birthplace of Patrick Barrel, football player; Joëlle Bellica, basketball player; Raoul Blanchard, geographer; Jean-Baptiste Marc Bergerie, anatomist; Philippe Chanlot, football player; Marion Cotillard, actress, is not born in Orleans, but she grew up in this town. Etienne Dolet, scholar and printer; Albert Gombeau, neurologist; Jacques Guillemeau, physician; Gaston Deliers, sculptor; Isaac Jogues, Jesuit missionary; Stanislas Julien, Orientalist; Gustave Lanson, historian; Damien Mayenga, football player; Yvain Moya, football player; Charles Pegay, poet and essayist; Antoine Petit, physician; Stephen K. Pavlovsky, business; Robert Joseph Podier, jurist; Lamine Sambé, basketball player; Youssine Sine, basketball player; Jean Zay, jurist and politician. Culture. Historical secular monuments of interest: the Gallo-Roman town wall on the north side of the cathedral and along the Rue de la Tour Neuve; the Hotel Groslot, built between 1550 and 1555 for Jacques Groslot, Bailly d'Orléans, by Jacques Ir Androé du Cerceau. François II of France died there in 1560. Charles IX, Henry III of France and Henry IV of France stayed there. The hotel was restored in 1850. The building houses the Town Hall of Orléans since 1790. The Hôtel de la Ville Intendance, real Gothic Renaissance-style chateau made of bricks. Today it houses the administrative court of Orléans. One can admire its frontage from the entrance in the Rue de la Bretonnerie, but the most beautiful view of this house, in which stayed the highest figures of the kingdom passing by the city, and maybe some kings themselves, may be obtained from its gardens, open to the public. The Hôtel de la Motte Sanguine and its gardens, manor built by order of the Duke of Orléans. Louis-Philippe d'Orléans named Égalité, equality, after his backing of the 1789 revolutionaries. Nicknamed the richest man on earth, he voted in favor of the death penalty against his cousin the King Louis XVI. This is a classic-style princely residence. It is comparable to the Loire Valley's Château. The School of Artillery, formerly housing a military school built in the 19th century near the River Loire, and a more recent pond René Thinat. Remains of the University of Orléans, founded in 1306 by Pope Clement V, in which, among many other great historical figures, the Protestant John Calvin studied and taught. The university was so famous that it attracted students from all over Europe, particularly Germany. The city of Orléans is one of the cradles of Protestantism. The House of Louis XI on Saint-Aignan Square, built by order of the sovereign who revered particularly Saint-Aignan. The House of Joan of Arc, where she stayed during the Siege of Orléans. The Place du Martyr, heart of the city, with a statue of Joan of Arc at its center, made by Denis Fortier. This statue was damaged during the Second World War, then repaired by Paul Belmondo, father of the famous 1950s to 1980s French actor. The Barnier Gate House, discovered in 1986 under the statue of Joan of Arc. It was built in the 14th century. It can be seen through a window in the subterranean car park under the square visited under certain conditions. The Rue de Bourgogne, the most important street of Orléans for more than 2,000 years. It used to be the decumanus of the Roman city crossing the Forum. Then Joan of Arc entered the city in 1429 by the Bourgogne gatehouse situated at its eastern end. Until today it is still giving access to the prefecture, where the prefect lives, the Galeries Lafayette, many restaurants and shops. It is more than a mile long. It is the heart of the city. One can admire many historical houses on its sides. The Tour Blanche, White Tower, only tower subsisting of the Gallo-Roman town wall, still in use at the time of the Siege of Orléans. The port is once the most important inland port of France. While boats could not sail on the river Seine because of the windings, they could sail to Orléans on the river Loire with the wind in the back. Then the merchandises were brought to Paris by roadways. Wine and sugar from the colonies were shipped to Orléans, where they were stored and refined. Vinegar is still a speciality of the city due to the lapsing of wine stocks during the shipment. One can admire the old pavement of the port on the north bank of the river in the city and on the island in the middle that was used to channel the water. The Hôpital Madeleine, built by King Louis XIV and his successors, still in use. The Hotel Cabot, otherwise named House of Diane de Poitiers, built by order of Philippe Cabot, barrister, in 1547, on plans of the famous architect Jacques-Ier Androuet du Cerceau. The Hotel Hat, 16th century. Today the Charles Péguy Centre. The Hotel Tartan, 16th century. The Hotel Pomerette d'Orléans, 16th century. The Hotel Ducesseau, 16th century. The Maison de la Coquille, 16th century. The Hotel des Créneaux, former City Hall, flanked by its bell tower. It today houses the city's School of Music. This is a magnificent piece of late Gothic secular architecture that reminds the famous and much more recent Parisian City Hall. The House of Jean d'Alembert, 16th century. The study of Jacques Boucher, which can be admired from the public square Jacques Boucher. The mansions of the Rue d'Escours. The Prefecture, former Benedictine monastery, built in 1670 and housing the Prefecture du Loiret since 1800. The Pont d'Europe, designed by Santiago Calatrava, is an inclined bowstring arch bridge particularly original. The Pont Royal, the oldest bridge of the city. The Pont des Tourelles, built in 1140 and demolished in 1760, was the first stone-made bridge of Orléans. When the river Loire is low, one can see remains of it in the water. The Bishop's Palace. The courthouse. The Salle de l'Institut, on Place Sainte-Croix, is a small concert hall which can be converted in a ballroom. Its acoustics is remarkable. The mansions of the Rue de la Bretonnerie. This street concentrates many hotels, particularly as of all styles and ages. High society members, politicians, barristers, doctors, continue to live there. Statue Les Baigneurs by Paul Belmondo, beside the Rue Royale. Statue of Calvin by Daniel Leclerc, facing the Calvinist temple. The Frac Center building, named Les Turbulences, an advanced piece of architecture covered with LEDs. Many historical houses and mansions can still be admired in the city center, which is one of the largest in France due to the great importance of the city until the 20th century. The historical center, dating back to the 15th century, extends far beyond the limits of the pedestrian sector that has been extensively restored in the past few years. In fact, it corresponds to the portion of the modern city which is enclosed by the boulevards. Many historical monuments remain in the non-pedestrian sectors of the city. Museums in Orléans. Musée des Beaux-Arts Orléans. Charles Pegay Center, Joan of Arc's House, Fine Arts Museum, City Historical and Archaeological Museum, Natural Science Museum, Parks in Orleans, Parc Floral de la Source, Mont Sanguin Garden, Charpentry Garden, Botanic Garden, Andurant Park, Charbonnière Park, Moinsrue Park, Pasteur Park, Media TV Network, Orleans TV, Newspaper, La République du Centre, Music Burning Heads, Sport. Orleans has a basketball team, Orleans Loire Basket, which is in the French First Division. The club won the Coupe de France of basketball, its first major trophy, in the season 2009-2010. Orleans also has a football club, the US Orleans, which plays in the French Third Division. The city also has very well-known clubs in karate, fencing and judo. In 2012, Orleans hosted a stage finish of Paris.It. International Relations. Orleans is twinned with, it has a partnership with Kraków in Poland. Education. The university campus is in the Les Sources area in southern part of the commune.